first things first, I want to apologize to you all. I have to get this off my chest. I failed you. Last week I said that the lesson would be substantially longer, and then when I went to edit that video, I was like, dang, this thing is almost 2 hours long.
You said substantially shorter.
I said substantially shorter, so I just want to throw that out there. I was wrong. All right.
So it's short.
You never say, Amore never says he's wrong. No. I was wrong. You know, I did not know that lesson went on that long. But on the serious note, serious note, when we get to this one is. Maybe I shouldn't even say that. Huh?
Exactly.
I have plans for this lesson, but I don't know how it's going to turn out. All right, just know that in my head,
It's shorter.
it's shorter. In my head. All right. But you know, when I start talking to y'all and y'all start giving me y'all feedback, which is very, very important. You know, we don't have this assembly where it's just me projecting my voice onto you. It is me speaking, you speaking. It is a corporate effort in trying to gain understanding. So that actually, you know, increases the amount of time that we have when we're trying to gain understanding. All right, but that's not a bad thing. But this lesson that we're going to do today, once again, it's not many slides, but as we talk and break it down, we'll see how long it turns out to be. But this is a simple lesson, but it's of tremendous importance. Tremendous importance. This is about commitment. It's about your levels of commitment, all right? So, have you ever had to move furniture?
Yes.
You ever moved?
Yeah.
Now, have you ever asked some of your friends to help you move?
Yes.
Now, have you ever asked these friends to help you move and they say yes?
Yes.
And then when it's time to move, they don't show?
Yes.
You know, it's like you can really find out the character of a person when you gotta move. You really find out the character of a person when you gotta move. There's something about moving that just draws people away from you. I don't know what it is. It's like the Bermuda Triangle of character traits. It's just sucked you right on in. I don't know what it is, but seriously, there is a lot of half-hearted commitment in this community. Whether you look at it as a whole within the black community, or when you look at it with just in the Hebrew community, there's a lot of half-hearted commitment, a lot of inconsistencies. We speak haphazardly. We speak because we get real excited, especially when you meet new Hebrews and they start talking about what it is they got going on or these plans, and then people want to, oh yeah, man, I'm gonna help you with that. I can do this, yeah, I do this, and they start collaborating, and that's good. That's really, really good. When Hebrews begin to collaborate and find out these skill sets that they have and want to work together. However, it becomes bad when it's time to actually manifest that which you have discussed, and all of a sudden, someone decommits or someone backs out. And so now you've either wasted much time involving someone in plans that is not going to come to fruition, or you've depended on them to complete a specific task that's not going to occur. And then that causes a strain on relationships, partnerships, and all this type of stuff. And we as Hebrews love banners. You know, we love to pronounce to the world who we are. We love that. Israel. We're Israel. You hop on the bandwagon. We're Israel. But Israel, what was his name before he was turned to Israel?
Jacob.
All right, so one thing about Jacob is that I believe he is like the epitome of masculinity in the text. When you look at his actions, I think he epitomizes masculinity. But not only does he epitomize masculinity, he epitomizes commitment. And the way we carry his name, Israel, and we flaunt it, we promote it, we, once again, wave that banner of us being Israel, is not consistent with the type of character of our forefathers. It's not consistent in that. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at some texts and we're going to try to break this down and see what it is that our forefather and some other scriptures about commitment, because this is actually a really serious issue, because in case y'all haven't noticed that the world is changing. The world is changing. And it's changing rapidly. Does that mean? That is me. The world is changing and it's changing rapidly. So we got to make sure that these relationships that we're building, these unions, these networks, or whatever it is, that they can stand the test of time. And by standing the test of time, you know that it can stand the test of time when you are sure of each other's commitments. See, it's very, very easy to say that you're down with someone. It's very, very easy to say that you're down with someone when nothing is required of you. Very, very easy.
Yeah.
I'll ride with you. I got your back. I'll do this, when nothing is required of you. But the minute expectations come into play, that's when you see the true nature of a person. Think about that. Turn to Genesis 31, verse 38. We're going to start there. Anybody got something to say about commitment before we get into the text? Anyone ever experienced someone committing and decommitting and going back and forth on what it is that they want to do?
Yep, last week. Well,
You say this week? What happened?
Now I have a coworker, several coworkers actually, that like they were committed to some actions because of a disagreement, and I mean they kept going about it all week, stopped doing their duties and whatnot, and at the end of yesterday, everything just completely flipped around, like it never happened, and I'm like, what was the purpose of going through all of this? And like there was absolutely no purpose of it at all. When you look at it at the end of the day, what was the purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Like you doing all of these actions, having other people being influenced by your actions, and then at the end, you completely flipped it and leave these other people like wondering what path should they take now?
Right. You know, one thing that happened with me, this was about a year and a half ago. It was around the first time I started actually volunteering at the farm. I was inviting people from the assembly, hey, let's go down here, let's go volunteer, let's go do some work down on the farm. It was on a Sunday. That Sunday came, and everyone's getting ready to go, and I ended up, I was sick, I didn't feel good. I don't remember exactly what the sickness was. I think it was like a bad cough or sore throat or something like that. It was just really, really bothering me. And I didn't feel good. I was lethargic, didn't have a lot of energy. But what I did was I didn't tell anyone that anything was wrong with me. And I made sure that no matter what, I was still down there. And it's funny because when I got around everyone, then I actually started feeling better. But what occurred was this thought in my head where I can't let these people down. I'm the one who gathered everyone together. I'm the one who rallied these people together so that we can go down there and help. I can't be the one to not show up.
Right.
I can't do that. I began to take on that responsibility that no matter what, I need to be there. And then I was there. And everything worked out. Moving forward, you all know about my relationship now there, but that shows something when you can begin to consider your words, especially when you begin to involve other people in what it is that you're trying to do. Like you have a vision, an idea, and you begin to bring people into that and bring them into the process. You have to stick to what it is that you're saying. Other people are involved. Their understandings, their consciousness. Like you have to understand that you or your lack of commitment can actually be the thing that causes another person to become broken.
So true.
How? How does that happen?
Because then you view it as somebody who doesn't keep their word, and they can't rely on you.
They can't rely on you. So what happens to that individual? Okay, so person A commits to person B, and person A decommits. And then person A commits to person B again, and this person decommits again. And it happens a couple of times. What happens to person B? End up not trusting you. And not only does it not end up trusting you, they begin to develop trust issues in general.
Yeah.
So you are actually contributing to a person being broken when you don't keep your word. When you don't keep your commitments, you are contributing to the brokenness of our people. It's much bigger than you can just imagine. And we got to keep this in mind. We got to keep this in the focus of how we operate as individuals who claim the name of Israel. This is important. Genesis 31, starting at verse 38. 20 years have I been with thee. So let me give you a little backdrop. So at this point in the narrative, Jacob, his parents, his father commissions him to go down to Laban. So to go down to Laban, get him a wife from his own people, right? Get him a wife from his own people. He goes down there and he meets Laban and he tells him what he's here for. And then eventually he serves, right? And then what happens after the 7 years of service? He got the wrong wife. It was a little switcheroo, okay? So, but then he serves again. All right? So then he serves again after the wives. And he serves for cattle, for the livestock. So he's going through these periods of servitude. But at the same time, there's things that's happening in these agreements that keeps changing. So Laban has a serious problem with keeping his word. He has a serious problem with that. So in these agreements, these things are changing. It comes to a point to where Jacob now sees that Laban is looking at him differently. He also recognized that Laban's sons are looking at him differently. So he goes to his wife, say, hey, we gotta go. You know how I've served your father, this happened, this happened, this happened. They're all in agreement, okay, it's time to leave. So he leaves, they exit. He didn't tell them because he knew that if he would have told them, that he was going to try to come up with some other way to keep him there, like he did with the livestock. Going to figure out some way to keep him there. All right, so he leaves. They catches up with him. So then this happens. Laban sees him. Why have you took my children away like they're captives, my daughters? And they're having this confrontation. And Laban is like, he's made this big deal about these idols. He goes to search for them. Jacob has no idea that actually one of his wives did take him. But he's like, go ahead and search. So they find nothing. They find nothing. So then Jacob goes on, and this is where we are in the story. Why did you chase me down like a madman? Verse 38. This 20 years have I been with thee. These ewes and thy she-goats have not cast their young. Our ewes are, there you go, what is it?
Female sheep.
Female sheep, there you go, good job. Thy ewes and thy she-goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flock have I not eaten. So when you look at cast their young, he's really talking about miscarriage. So the care that he has given to Laban's flock have caused his flock to increase. He did not eat them. He did not do anything to where he was taking advantage of Laban according to their agreements, right? So he was very careful and diligent in the way that he was managing that which did not belong to him. He was keeping his agreement. He was keeping his understanding, or this mutual understanding that he thought he had with Laban. All right? Verse 39. That which was torn of beasts I brought not unto thee. I bear the loss of it. Of my hand did thou require it, whether stolen by day, stolen by night. Thus I was in a day, and the drought consumed me. and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. So what he's saying is, he's doing this servitude. When something did happen out of his control, whether, a beast ate something of the flock, he came out and he took the loss. So he replaced it. He replenished that which really was out of his control. But that's because the type of man that he was, he kept this commitment, and he said that he would rather be the one to lose than the person who he's serving. Right? This stuff is under his control at this present time. It's under his watch. So he has to be the one to make sure that everything turns out okay with the flock that he's watching. So then he goes on and talks about the drought. Now, if you've ever worked outside in the summer in Georgia, midday, you know that it's hot. A couple weeks ago, right? A couple weeks ago, they came to help me dig some trenches and some transplants and some crops. So they come out there midday. It's hot. It's baking. How did you feel? Hot.
Yeah,
Feel like you. He said he fell asleep on a ride back home. He's like 15 minutes from the house.
Yeah, he was not.
He got cooked. So that heat is no. So put that in perspective. Put that in perspective, because y'all was able to leave after the work and get into this AC, this vehicle with AC, and then drive home and then get into your nice, comfortable beds if you so desire to, right? But either way, you ended up in a different climate than that which you just left out from. Now, in his scenario, all he could do was find a shade tree. Maybe go in his tent, which was probably hot as well. So that heat was consuming him. He's expressing to Laban the things that he had to deal with. But what did he not do?
Cheat him.
He did not cheat him. He did not break his commitment. He's experiencing these things. He says that he was experiencing that heat. He says frost by night. So I was in Iraq at one point. 2006, I was in Iraq. I was there for a year. And it would get hot. In the day, it would get really, really hot. Now, the crazy thing is, it wasn't necessarily that it got real cold, temperature-wise. But because your body was so used to it being hot, the drop in temperature would affect you. And it feels cold. When I came back, it was like July. I came back for 2 weeks. And I went to Detroit. Detroit, summer, you may average around 85, something like that. They're out there playing basketball, shirts off, drenched in sweat, and I'm over there with a jacket on. In the summer, 85 degrees. I'm cold. I'm cold. I'm very uncomfortable. I look pretty strange too. Just keep it real. I was looking pretty strange. But it's because my body had adapted to this other climate.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know necessarily the temperature that he had to deal with, but whatever this temperature was, it was varying degrees, right? The heat consumed him, the frost consumed him, and if you've ever been cold, it's one thing to be hot, and you know what, I would prefer to be hot, me personally. Shake your head, no, I would prefer to be hot. Have you ever had to work in the cold? When your toes curling up like this, you barely feel them?
It's a coat.
When those things happen, I have to work with wires, and it's really, really cold. Like an install that should take me an hour and a half, maybe. It took me 3 hours. It doubled the time because I kept having to go inside my vehicle to warm up. So it's one thing to work in heat, which is uncomfortable. But for me, that cold is even worse for me. He experienced both. He's experiencing both, and he's expressing this. He's talking about how these things affected his sleep. So we got to put ourselves in that type of position where we can think about the worst elements that we can imagine ourselves actually working in and keeping whatever commitment that we made to another person. You're not doing this necessarily for yourself. You're doing this because you opened your mouth and said something, because you agreed to something. So he's suffering in the process of this, but he's also being elevated in the eyes of the Most High, because this is a man of character who will not break his vow. Does this make sense so far? 20 years, verse 31. Thus I have been 20 years in thy house. I've served thee 14 years for 2 daughters, and 6 years for thy cattle. And thou hast changed my wages 10 times. So he's experiencing shady dealings. And this is very important to address, because you can work with people who will do some stuff like this, where you're working for them and they don't want to pay you, or they change. That actually happened to me with my last job. I was a contractor, and I signed the contract for one thing, and a couple months later they wanted to change the contract, and then a couple months later they changed the contract again, and I didn't have a say in it. But if I violated the contract, then I would lose the job. So it was very, very shady the way I was being done in that position. But so Jacob experiencing something like this. His wages is constantly being changed, but what did he not do?
Break his commitment.
He did not break his commitment. So how many of us who wear the name of Israel, or we say that we are Israelites, saying you descend from this same individual, can say that they have this level of commitment? You don't have to answer that right now. Consider it amongst yourself. What can cause you to break your vow? What can cause you to break your commitments, your agreements that you make with people? Think about these things. Verse 42, except for the Elohim of my father, the Elohim of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac have been with me, surely thou hadst sent me away now empty. Elohim has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. So what he was doing was he was acknowledging the wrong treatment. He was acknowledging, I know I'm being done wrong. And this is one of the reasons why I say that he's the epitome of masculinity in the text when I examine his entire narrative. Is because it's not that he was being naive. He knew he was being done wrong. He understood this without a doubt. But he stayed. For whatever reasons, whether he was thinking that I have to honor my word, or the Most High will change this, or he will intercede on my behalf, or something will, or Laban will change his dealings, or whatever the case may be, he did not break that commitment that he made. And so, understanding this, it is up to us. It is up to us to carry that same type of mentality with working with each other. Go ahead, Elder.
That commitment is back up in 42 as well. There was a commitment made honoring what his father wanted.
You said that commitment was back in 42 as well?
Well, I mean, the fact that the commitment that he has to the Most High and to the Elohim of his fathers.
Came.
And his not disappointing him as well, because he originally went there for a particular purpose.
Came. He did. He went there for a particular person, and all of these things happened 20 years later. But there's a text in the New Testament. It's Colossians 3:23. Says, you don't have to go there. Whatever you do it heartily as unto Yah, not man. So it's like Jacob was already embodying this principle thousands of years in advance prior to it being written. He was the embodiment of this. So I'm going to continue to do what it is that I agreed to do. I'm going to do it because I am a son of the Father. I'm a son of Elohim. And I'm going to work as if I'm working for Elohim. How many people do you know can say that they work for anyone with the same type of tenacity they would if they was working for the Father? Every one of us, I'm sure, can look at some of the way that we operate and know that if we were truly working as if we're working for the Father, there would be some changes. I think all of us can say that we have missed the mark in that capacity at some point.
Okay.
At some point.
We've actually worked harder for employers than we have even our own household.
You will work harder for employers than you will work for Yah. You will work harder for employers than you will work for your brother. You will work harder for. It's amazing how we allow the things of this world, the things that have been created to manipulate our minds to think that one thing is more important than the other. You know, you're at a job. You are trading. You're actually in business with each other. You are exchanging your labor, or you're exchanging your time for a dollar amount. I'm going to give you X amount of dollars. You're going to give me X amount of time. It's really some type of partnership. So, granted, you should work in that capacity the same way, because you are making some sort of agreement. Now, we know on jobs, things can change. Things can change. So at that point, you can examine, is this an agreement that I'm still supposed to adhere to, because the terms and conditions are no longer the same. So there was a what is it called? A conference that I was going to teach at one day, and I ended up, as I agreed to teach on it, as it got closer and closer to the date, I began to see that things were changing as far as the conference. So I had to determine, is this what I agreed to? Is this what I agreed to? So I waited a little longer, and I saw what was happening. Then at that point, I'm like, okay, I spoke to the individual, like, but you know, this is where I'm at. This isn't what I actually agreed to. You have to actually change the scope of what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. And so I had to make a decision at that point, okay, do I stay or do I go? And at that point, I decided, you know what, I'm going to leave, because this is not what I agreed to. Now, in that same token, if I'm dealing with my brother and the things that we're agreeing to, there may be some subtle changes here and there. That should not be an excuse to jump ship. You should try to go that extra mile to work with the person so that you can keep their commitment. You shouldn't look for outs. You shouldn't look for ways to get out of it. Oh, okay, well, you said we're starting at 12. We started at 12:15. Well, you know what? I don't want to work with you no more. You shouldn't look for outs. You should look for how you can keep your word. This is important, because you got to understand what false promises are. When you're committing for something and it does not happen due to your own negligence, you're giving false promises. You're essentially a liar. Do we look at it that way? Do we look at it that way? Proverbs 25:14. Write that down. So, Proverbs 25:14. False promises. Check this. The KJV reads it like this. Like clouds and wind without rain is a man who boasts of a gift he does not give. Another translation says, whoever falsely boasts of giving is like clouds and wind without rain. All right, let's paint the picture real quick. Whoever falsely boasts of giving is like clouds and wind without rain. Growing your own food, when you grow your own food, you begin to appreciate what?
Rain.
Rain. You appreciate the rain. It's needed. Best water you can give your plants. So this is what happened to me this week. So, this past week has been very hot. They're very hot. I've been noticing that some of my plants were dying because they weren't getting enough water. I don't have an irrigation system, so I had to figure out something. I'm like, okay, you know what? We're gonna have to start watering the plants twice a day. So Wednesday comes. This is when I make that decision. Okay, this is what I'm gonna do. Start watering the plants twice a day. But Wednesday comes, and I'm driving around. Going towards my house. I'm seeing dark clouds in the sky. I'm seeing dark clouds. I'm like, bet. Great, this is exactly what I need. I'm like 4 miles away. It's pouring down. This is water everywhere. Like, cool, excellent. I don't even have to spend the time to even do that. I call up my son, ask him, hey, is it raining over there yet? He's like, no, not yet. I'm like, dang, okay, what does this cloud look like? He said, it's gray clouds. I'm like, okay, cool. All right, don't even worry about it. As I'm driving closer to the house, remember, I'm only 4 miles away. I'm driving closer to the house. I'm seeing all this wet road get closer, closer, closer. I'm like, this road is getting kind of dry. Kind of dry over here. Okay. I pull up to my house. I'm actually got home later than I anticipated, but now, so it's maybe like 7:30, 8 o'clock. Pull up to my house. I'm looking at the clouds. Still gray clouds. I look at the sidewalk, dry sidewalk. I touch the grass because I'm trying to determine where's the discrepancy in all of this. What's going on? Okay, so I look at the app, it says it's gonna rain. Hey, cool, it looks like it's gonna rain. It just rained over there. App says it's gonna rain, I don't water. What do you think happened? It didn't rain. Didn't rain. Thursday comes. Remember, this is this week.
Yeah.
Thursday comes. I'm out there building a shed. I got a Hebrew over there. He's helping me. We're building a shed. All right. He's going to help me until we are done. But what happens? Gray clouds come. And not only gray clouds come, thunder is there as well. Surely we're going to get some rain. Surely we're going to get some rain. But what we got to do is now we got to pack up, put this stuff away because we ain't not about to be out here. We're building a metal shed. We're not about to be out here doing this in no rain.
Right.
Let's go ahead and pack this up. Let's take off. So we pack it up earlier than we needed to. He leaves. I'm in the house. Where's the rain? Once again, false promises. Providing this expectation of something and is not meeting the expectation. What does it say? This is what the text is saying. Look, this is why it's important. Like when you live in this walk, because you can place yourself in that, and it makes more sense. Because I'm like, okay, Thursday, I gotta make sure that we water this stuff. And then the clouds came. One bad thing was, okay, I can't finish my set, but at least my plants get the water that they need. Okay, that's gonna balance out. False promises. No rain comes. You know what I do Friday?
Water.
I'm watering it. I couldn't trust it no more. I don't care what the clouds look like. I don't care what any apps say. I just went on and I watered it midday and just went about my
I
business.
did the same thing.
Yeah, I couldn't trust it no more. I couldn't trust it. Now imagine yourself as being that cloud. So now you have presented yourself to do something. And there was an expectation for you to fulfill that which you presented yourself for. I didn't ask you to do this. I didn't ask the cloud to come. But what the cloud offered was something that I needed.
Okay.
I couldn't turn it down if I wanted to. So great. But imagine yourself as this cloud where you're presenting yourself. You ever saw someone double dutch? And they got the rope going, and you're like, I'm gonna help you, no, I'm gonna help you, no, I'm gonna help you, no. And so after a while, what's gonna happen? What's going back to what I just said? You're creating or contributing to a person becoming broken. Because you're not meeting the expectations that you're committing to. And people so often project project themselves out and they put themselves out there without even someone asking them. They openly volunteer to help.
Wow, that's good.
Why would you do that? Do you not care about your brother or sister enough to not break them, to not scar them? Do you not care? So we think about this concept of unequally yoked. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear, do not be unequally yoked? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Say marriage, okay? What else?
Being
You say the ox, okay. You say what?
connected to someone with different values.
Being connected to someone with different values. See, what I've noticed from my experience with dealing with people is, because the context says, don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers. So we kind of always steer towards, something doctrinal, typically.
Yep.
It's typically doctrinal that we're steered to. And while that is definitely an application of the text, right? But you have to ask yourself, well, what makes someone an unbeliever?
Right.
What makes someone an unbeliever? Are we talking about just an unbeliever in God in general? Or you have different gods? Or what makes an unbeliever? When we look at our text, what will make you classified as an unbeliever? We gotta ask ourselves this question when we're dealing with a text like this. Because otherwise you don't know how to appropriately apply it. It says, don't be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. The next sentence says, for what fellowship have righteousness with unrighteousness? Once again, we can think of doctrine per se, but you can apply it on a much deeper level. Like the elder said back there, you look at the value systems.
Yep.
Because a person can say that they're Hebrew. I promise you I've seen it. A person can say that they're Hebrew all day long and believe in the Messiah and will violate the text and won't think twice. I've seen it, I promise you. So you look at the value system. If you want to apply this, once again, Torah culture, we're trying to apply the text to our lives, right? So if you want to determine how can you be unequally yoked, well, what can make you an unbeliever? If you do not believe what the text is saying, that will make you what?
An unbeliever.
All right, check it. So if you don't believe what the text is saying, that makes you an unbeliever. So therefore, if the text tells you to not steal, and you steal, that will classify you as what?
An unbeliever.
All right. So if the text tells you not to eat this, and you eat that same thing, what would that classify you as?
An unbeliever.
All right. So if the text tells you to not break your vow, and you break your vow, that will classify you as what? All right. So you see where this is going? You see where this? Let's break it down to the smallest scales, because we don't look at it as that. We look at it as, oh, you don't believe in us Messiah, you're an unbeliever. We look at it as, you don't believe in Yah, you're an unbeliever. No, your value is what Torah is. That's your value system. That's what it's built upon. If you're an Israelite, that's what your value system is built upon. So when these subtle little things like keeping your word, not going against your commitments, when you go against these type of things, you are really saying that you are an unbeliever. The whole principle of the unequally yoked thing has turned into basically a catalyst for people becoming dogmatic. So it becomes a catalyst for dogmatism, which then becomes a catalyst for individuality, which is against the Hebrew nature. All in itself. You're anti-Hebrew if you are individualistic. Did you know that? You're actually anti-Hebrew. Because that's not our culture. You don't find that in our culture. People like that would be considered rebels. People like that would be the same type of people who put on the outside of the community, kicked outside the community. outside the gates. Does this make sense? Yes or no?
Hands.
All right, another question. What do you think when you hear the text, which is James 1:8? He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I think that's,
Somebody who keeps changing their mind at a whim.
Okay. Someone who keeps changing their mind at a whim. Somebody else.
Flip-flopping, saying one thing.
Flip-flopping, saying one thing.
Donald Trump.
Down to yes.
oh, he's very consistent, actually.
He's consistently double-minded.
Facts,
He's
facts.
confused. Yeah, I think of someone who basically on my end that can't keep their word. They're always changing up what they said they're going to do, what they believe in. It's just constantly, or their actions don't match their word.
Okay. Go ahead, Elder.
Or not committed to a value system at all.
Not committed to a value system at all. That's good. That's good. But you know what? I love your answers because the context of this scripture is about asking Yah for something, but asking Him in faith, right? That's the actual context of the text. But remember, there's multiple ways to actually apply this stuff. So I'm glad to hear your answers. That's very practical thinking. You hear double-minded, you look at it from how does this connect with you and your brother, you and your sister, all right? So that's good, and I would agree with some of those things. Psalms 89:34 says, "My covenant will I not break, nor alter the thing that has gone out of my lips." That's Psalms 89:34. So you look at this double-minded individual who flip-flops, as you put it, goes back and forth. Inconsistent. One of the worst things you can be is inconsistent. If you're inconsistent, what else does that make you? Makes you unreliable. If you're unreliable, who needs you? If they do need you, can they use you?
Not necessarily.
This is something, whether it's the children, all the way up to the oldest person in here, we need to truly check our understanding or our approach to committing. And if it is not appropriate, then we need to change that as soon as possible. As soon as possible. I'm not playing. Like, don't call me Moray. Don't call me Moray if I'm constantly giving instructions and you don't follow it.
Oh,
Well, I'm not your Moray. I don't need you to fluff me. Like, I don't need you to. It's cute stuff. Hey, Moray. But you don't listen to nothing I say. You don't adhere to any of the instructions. I'm not your Moray. Moray means what?
teacher.
It's a teacher. If I'm telling you to do something, if I'm requiring you to do something, and you don't do it, then what am I not doing to you?
Teacher.
I'm clearly not your teacher. Clearly
Save
not.
that. Save that.
So you don't need to call me that. I don't need it. How you respond to the things that I say will tell me where I stand in your life. Period. I'm a man who looks at actions. So how you respond to the things I say will tell me where I stand in your life. Okay?
Okay.
Kane, y'all, I ain't heard nobody's feelings with that. I was not speaking to any individuals in here, just so you know. Like, y'all cool, I love y'all. Just saying, people watch these videos. So, just throwing that out there for the general public. Alright? But no, but you gotta really think about this though. Like, when you really draw the comparisons, you can see how detrimental this can be. Because what's the difference from a person who goes outside, you two walk outside, and say, what color is the sky? And you clearly see that the sky is blue. And they tell you, sky's orange. Sky's orange. And you like, No, it's not stupid, it's blue. What's the difference from that than a person who says, hey, have you seen my phone? And that person saw that phone, picked that phone up, and put it in their pocket. What are they?
A thief?
And a liar.
There you go. Yeah, one of them, he's a thief as well. But what I'm looking for is what she says. They're both liars. One of them just says something outlandish, and really believe that they can convince you of something that's not reality. And the other one is just very deceptive. He's a thief. That's at the root of it. He's a thief, but he's also a liar. So what's the difference? If there is no difference, when we look at a text like Leviticus 6, 2 through 3, that would classify them as unbelievers. It says, if a person commits a trespass against Yah by lying to his neighbor about what was delivered to him for safekeeping, or about a pledge, or about a robbery, or if he has extorted his neighbor, or if he found what was lost and lies concerning it, and swears falsely in any of these things that a man may do in which he sins, clearly a sin, these two are the same individuals. So now, what do you say to the person? Let's bring it back down to the whole point of the lesson. What do you say about a person who says, I'm going to help you, and don't? How do you classify this person? You can classify him as an unbeliever. And what do you do with unbelievers?
Have no fellowship with them.
I love y'all. Look at that. Y'all get it.
That was a quiz.
That was a quiz.
Pop quiz.
Pop quiz.
You have no fellowship with people like that. You have no fellowship with people of low values. I don't care what they claim to be.
Yep.
I don't care what they claim to be. You don't have fellowship with people like that. You have to start looking at people for what they are. And if they're not, if they're very non-committal, or they're the type that commits and decommits and says and don't do, and this whole double-minded, classify them as unbelievers. Don't be yoked with them. What you got to?
This is something that you're looking for a pattern in the person, not one's own.
Correct. You are. You're looking for a pattern. You're not looking for, because mistakes happen, life happens, right? So that's not the scope of what we're looking at. We're looking deeper into the character traits, and you identify character traits by identifying what? What do I always talk about?
Patterns.
The patterns. The patterns. You identify the character traits by identifying the patterns. All right. Now, for clarification, lying and a false witness, are they the same thing?
No.
I heard no. I see some confused faces. So this is what I want to clarify. All right. So a false witness is a liar, but it's a greater degree of lying. Why is it a greater degree of lying?
Accusations.
Because you're accusing someone. You're leveling an accusation. Not only are you leveling an accusation, because remember the context of where this is given is within this communal setting,
Yep.
right? So there is repercussions for certain transgressions. So if a person murders someone, what's the penalty for that? What is the judgment? Good. Okay. So we've established that. So a false witness does what? They accuse someone. They sit there in a position of saying, I saw this person do this, knowing that they did not see it. All right? They saw this person do this, knowing that they did not see it. Which could be, if two people does something like that, then what happens? Then that person can be
judged.
That person can enter to the judgment of death. So you now have with the false witness, of course they're a liar, but it's to a greater degree because what's at stake? you're leveling false accusations. That's what the false witness is. You're falsely saying you witnessed something. All right? So when we look at the commandment that says that, you're not only a liar, which lying is clearly forbidden in the text anyway, but when we look at the commandment that says false witness, understand that this is the degree of which they're talking about, of being a false witness. You're accusing someone. Basically, you are putting this person in a position to where they can die unjustly. You can be the catalyst for shedding innocent blood. This is why we gotta break down what it's actually talking about when we see these things. False witness. You're falsely accusing someone of something. So I just wanted to make that distinction between just simply lying and what a false witness is, all right? But here in America, we have gotten so accustomed to lying that we've actually made it like positive things. Let's go ahead and say it again. It's a white lie. You know, it's a little innocent lie. There's nothing wrong with a little innocent lie. It's so common, so normal. It's innocent. Just casual. Have you ever thought about that?
Mm-hmm.
That's how casual we've made lying in this country. So when you make something like lying casual, then it becomes nothing to meet someone, establish a relationship, agree to do something, and they don't do it because, you know, it's something. I got busy.
Yep.
I got busy.
Yeah.
That's all. It creates like a snowball, and it always starts with something small. Sin always starts with what? Something small. You know, a person doesn't just hop out and just become a full-blown backslider after coming into the faith. You don't just hop out and become a full-blown backslider. One day you wake up, it's like, oh, I'm renouncing everything. You don't just do that. Or no, I'm no longer keeping the Sabbath. Or the Sabbath can be any day. You don't come into the faith and just do that. There comes something small which seems insignificant. My elder is a story that he gives, and I actually found it to be quite true. Is that you get accustomed to the sins, even when they're so small, you get accustomed to them. It really becomes nothing. So like an individual, and it could be big, it could be small, but an individual, he told me a story about people that he's noticed who will work on the Sabbath. They work on the Shabbat. And at first they feel bad. So they're aware, right? We're talking about Israelites. They're aware that they're not supposed to work on the Sabbath. So at first they feel bad. But then they do it again. And they feel bad. They don't feel as bad.
Mm-hmm.
All right?
Justify it.
That's the end result. That's the end result. So then you do it again and you don't really feel bad. And then after a while you don't feel bad at all. And then once you get to that point where you don't feel bad at all, the next step is what she just said. You then become one who justifies it. You will either adopt or create doctrines, read into stuff in order for you to justify why it's okay for you to do what you're doing. That's what happens. Am I wrong, Tim? Tell me if I'm wrong. Let's talk. Tim, am I wrong about that?
Right.
That's what happens. So we got to be careful that our word, that our agreements are just casually made. Unless you're just that type of person who I can make all these casual agreements. I'm gonna make sure I fulfill all of them. If you're just good like that, then by all means, do you. Do you. But a lot of people aren't built that way. A lot of people aren't built that way. All right? So we're almost done. Hasn't been that long, right? We're almost done. So, Proverbs 20:25. It says, yeah, somebody read that for me. Proverbs 20, verse 25.
It is a snare to the man who devoureth that which is holy, and after vows to make inquiry.
Okay, good job. Read it one more time, because I want to make sure we get this point across.
It is a snare to the man who devoureth that which is holy, and after vows to make inquiry.
All right. So, to break this down, what's being said is essentially that it is a snare to someone who devotes something or rashly devotes something as holy. This is what he's talking about. Devote something as holy. And afterwards, now they reconsider it. Now they want to think about it after the vow. But you already vowed it. It's as if this, because you know how we like to count our money, right? So let's think about this. Let's put it in perspective. You know, folks get their tax returns, right? You know, they file their taxes. They get ready. You know, I'm gonna have this much money. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. You know what? So this person decides to get something on them that says, "Hey, I'm gonna donate. I'm gonna give to your cause. You got this fund? I'm gonna donate $1,000 because I know on the back end I got 5 stacks coming through. That dang gone check come in. You know what happened? Some creditor that took some from them. Some creditor that they collected on a debt that they owed. Now they got a $1,500 return. They've devoted $1,000. What do you think is going to happen now?
They're gonna back up on their commitment. Yeah, have a good reason.
Let's be real. What do you think is going to happen?
Not gonna happen.
It's not going to happen. These things change.
Things change.
You know, you're going to find a way to get out of that.
Okay.
Even if you got to avoid the person. Don't act like that don't happen.
Better that they didn't do it, and to say that they're vowing and then don't pay.
And then show up like 3 months later, like, oh, no, I mean I had it, and then, but you know,
Life.
yeah, it's like, why you ain't hit me up? I have. Oh, you know, I did change my number. My bad.
I lost my contact.
You find some type of way to get out of that situation, but because you spoke on something that you didn't even have in your possession, you spoke to give it. You got to now you got to escape from that commitment. Broken promises.
So they say you're writing a check, but your mouth writing a check that you can't cash.
Mouth writing a check that you can't cash. We know the other word that he left out. All right. Mouth writing a check that you can't cash. So over committing. No matter how good you may feel at the time. No matter how good you may feel at the time. I'm telling you, it happens. We get excited. But we gotta be careful. You end up breaking your brother or sister in the process.
I was just gonna say, you know, when I've seen this type of thing, I've seen it as far as using that example where that person vowed to give $1,000 from their taxes or whatever, and then they changed their mind. That person that they vowed to maybe made a decision dependent upon them. If they made a, especially life decision, or agreed, with, let's say they had a debt, or something like that, then it's so easy for that person to be scarred, to be broken, because then they got to go back. And what if they can't? What if they set up something automatically to be debited? They made a vow to someone else. Then they got to go. It's
Correct.
Such a snowball effect.
Oh, my thing's about to die. Here's the thing with that, right? And what you said is actually a perfect example. Perfect example. So, when you make these vows or you make these agreements and commitments to do whatever it may be, whether it's time, labor, money, whatever, resources, you know what happens is people naturally will begin to include that in their planning process.
Yeah.
So now, that thing which you have devoted to them, time, money, resources, whatever that thing may be that you have devoted to them, they are now dependent upon you. So now they have a dependency on you. I don't know what I'm trying to do. Oh, here you go. They now have a dependency on you because they're expecting, like that, like I was expecting, like I was expecting that rain from that cloud, and played me twice.
2 days ago.
They're expecting from you now. Now they're depending on you. So as she said, now they're making their plans and they are factoring that into the equation. And when you reverse on that commitment, you are now putting this person in a terrible position. In a terrible position. And now, you're also putting any type of relationship you have with them. Now you are putting us in a position to where offense can now occur.
Yeah.
Offense can now occur. Because this is something that we're supposed to be able to do. We're supposed to be able to depend on each other. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen. We're almost done. A couple more slides. Peter's wavering commitment. Peter, go ahead.
This can also go back to Laban and Jacob and the promises that he made. He didn't fulfill his promises.
Who, Laban?
But, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I guess that's the reason why Jacob was angry with him, because of all the time that he spent working for him.
First.
And Laban didn't fulfill all the promises that he was supposed to.
Absolutely. And it put Jacob in these awkward positions.
Yeah.
Where he had to make decisions. And, you know, the man just wanted to go back to his family.
Mm-hmm.
And Laban found every reason to keep them there and, under false pretenses. And once again, kept changing stuff.
Yes.
So it was a potential for a fractured relationship right there. But being the type of person Jacob was, he didn't come at Laban in a certain type of way, as if somebody else would have, you know, in the text. Like if it was Esau, you know, Esau probably would have, you know, been no more Laban.
Yeah.
But Jacob was a meek individual. I mean, Esau was the wild man, you know. But clearly, they end up having to make a covenant at the end of the story. They make this covenant. But a part of the covenant is that, okay, let's set up this monument right here, right? Let's set this up, and let's agree that you don't come to do me harm, I don't come to do you harm. So clearly, like when you really look at what's going on in the text, it ain't rosy.
Yeah.
But they're now coming to another agreement. The thing is, and you know, the narrative ends, and that's the end of it. But I would not have been surprised if late Laban would have thought twice about that. You see what I'm saying? If I catch him near this area, then I may do so. So you never know when you're dealing with a person like that. Like that's the type of person I wouldn't make a covenant with.
Nah.
I would never make a covenant with that type of individual. But I understand that, okay, once again, we talk about Jacob. This is why I love Jacob so much. Like you really look behind him buying somebody's birthright. And even that is a different story when you really analyze what's going on in the scenario. But when you look at everything about Jacob, this is why I love him so much. I saw a forefather, I promise you, the man, he was a man of great character.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do an expose on Jacob. And we're gonna look at his stuff, and I'm gonna show you all the type of person that he was. And especially, and this can apply for women, but especially for the men, you should model yourselves after an individual like that. And I'll show you. I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it, and we're gonna break Jacob's life down. All right, but Peter. All right, Peter was someone who, you know what I'm talking about, New Testament Peter, right? He was someone who was he was down to ride. You know, he knew the character of the person that he was riding with. Oh, wait, no, let's look at this narrative first. Matthew 26, 69 through 74. Then I'll expound on it. We got like 2 slides left, y'all.
26.
26 verses 69 through 74. All right, y'all there?
Okay.
Good. It's Matthew 26, verse 69 through 74. And it says, now Peter sat outside the courtyard. So this is after the crucifixion of Hamashiach. All right, this is after that. All right, so this is 3.5 years he's been riding with Hamashiach. He's crucified. This is what occurs. Now Peter sat outside the courtyard, and a serving girl came to him saying, you also were with Yahusha of Galilee. But he denied it before them all, saying, I don't know what you're saying. 71. And when he had gone out to the gateway, another girl saw him and said to those who were there, this fellow also was with Yahusha of Nazareth. But again, he denied with an oath, I do not know this man. And a little later, those who stood by came up to Peter and said, surely you also are one of them, for your speech betrays you. Then he began to curse and swear, saying, I do not know the man. I don't know him. He straight turned to Shaggy on him. It was like, you that man that was with Yahusha Galilee. He's like, it wasn't me. He straight turned to Shaggy on him.
I'm meeting you in Galilee. It wasn't me. It was with the men in Nazareth.
But listen to this. So think about what I said earlier. About stop.
You can picture him.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
I saw you with Yahusha. It wasn't me. Remember when I said it's easy to say you're down with someone when nothing's required of you.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember I said I started off this lesson saying that. It's easy to say you're down with someone when nothing is required of you. Now think about this. There's 2 sides to this. Now, he knew the character of the person that he was with, right? Of this person that he was following. Think about that. He knew the character of this individual. As a matter of fact, that person, Yahusha, asked them, who do they say I am? Some say Elijah, some say this. Okay? What do you say? Steps up. You are the son of the living. He answers. He knows it. Flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, Peter.
But Yahusha also told him that he was going to deny.
Correct, he did. He did. But he knew the person that he was rocking with. He knew the person that he was following. Flesh and blood did not reveal this to you. All right. So, time comes. This person says, I would never deny you. It's always the ones who are so outspoken, right?
Ooh.
It's always the ones who always putting themselves up. I'll never do this. I'm with you. I won't deny you. I would rather die than deny you. You say before the cock crows, you're gonna deny me 3 times. I would never deny you. You hear what he just said? Yeah, you won't deny him.
line.
Getting in a position. They're getting ready to take Yahusha. Who steps up? Who steps up to defend him? Who's the first one to step up to defend him? Peter. Peter.
Cut the line.
Peter.
Peter is the first one to step up to defend him. He slices a man's ear off.
The Nile games.
Surely Peter is a committed individual. Surely. But I want y'all to think about this. Then there came a time where that person was not around. You know the character of this person, but the person wasn't around at this time. And you seen something happen. And you're like, it's pretty tough. I don't really want no parts of that. So, yeah. You know? You was with him, though. I was not. I was with him. You don't want no part. Because when the pressure came on, when the heat got turned up with someone who you claimed that you were committed to. So now he's committed to this individual, and this individual has this vision to fulfill the works of the Father, and you're committed to that vision. But then soon as a little pressure comes along, a little attention, now you want to distance yourself. Are we not reading the same text? This is the way I read the text. This is how I look at it.
That's what happened.
Everything can apply to life.
Yeah.
Everything can. In this book.
Wow.
So now pressure comes on, so he get turned on a little bit. You know, and now he,
I don't know.
I don't know. I didn't fellowship with him. I had nothing to do with that guy.
Yeah.
Have we not seen this before?
Yeah.
This type of stuff happens every day.
Yeah.
Every day, every day.
That's in the Hebrew community.
It happens all the time. Now his commitment got tested when he wasn't around. So behind his back, behind Yahusha's back, Peter's commitment level was tested. He fell. Not knowing he was going to see him again, you know, it's always awkward, you know. You say you're riding with someone and then you turn your back on them and then see him at a feast day or something like that. It's like, yep, I'm just gonna keep looking this way. It's awkward. I've seen this stuff happen so much, man. This is funny. This stuff is funny. You gotta laugh at this stuff. It's great. Your commitment will be tested. Your levels of commitment to your word, to the people who you are associated with, will be tested.
Yep.
And you don't know how that test is going to come about. But you got to consider, do you know the character of this person? So if you do, then your decision on how you should respond to a situation like that should already be decided. I know the character of this individual. Or if your word is being tested. All right. This is someone I agreed to do something with. This person is now depending on me. Yeah, I have this obstacle that's trying to prevent me from accomplishing what it is that I was determined in my spirit to accomplish, but am I going to allow it to stop me from fulfilling what it is I set out to do? Because I'm now responsible for this person's spiritual health.
Wow.
I can fracture that. Last line. Very familiar text. Very, very familiar. Luke 14, 28 through 30. If this lesson is over hours and I give up, I'm just stop saying it's gonna be short lessons. I'm just gonna give up.
Luke what?
Luke 14, 28 through 30. Now it's 18 slides. It's 18 slides. I'm trying to, I think I'm over an hour.
It don't matter.
There you go, that's what I'm talking about. It's a spot. These children like, it do matter. You need to keep your word. You committed to us getting out of here early.
Actually, not today, so you're just gonna try.
That's true, I did, yeah.
How we got?
I learned, like, hey, let me not say that. Luke 14, 28 through 30. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not sit down first and do what? Count the cost. How, what methods, what ways can you look at for counting the cost? Is this feasible? You know? Some stuff is not always about, this is going to cost me 10 hours and 36 minutes and 42 seconds. It's not. Is this feasible? Does my schedule permit me to do so? Which I want to do. If my schedule currently doesn't, am I willing to change things around to make this occur? All right? Was actually being requested even attainable? With my help, can he or she achieve what it is that they're trying to do? These are just other methods of counting the cost. Can you, within your capabilities, produce the desired outcome that you are agreeing to? Count the cost. Is this clear?
Yes.
All right. For which of you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it? That's after he has laid the foundation. You laid the groundwork to all of this. You laid the groundwork to these relationships, but now you realize that you can't finish it because you actually have half-hearted commitment to people. That's after you lay the foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it will begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build a relationship and was not able to finish. I'm sorry, it says this man began to build and was not able to finish. Stop over committing. Stop over committing.
Wow.
Stop and think about what it is you are agreeing to. And then let your yay be yay, and your nay be nay, your no be no. All right? Stop overcommitting.
Yeah.
You know what you are capable of doing. Even if you love this person, you don't just automatically say yes just because of that. Because what happens when you can't fulfill it? That love ain't gonna be the same after that's done.
Yep.
So true.
Now you're gonna have to repair something. So it's better to think before you commit. It's better to do what? Count
The cost.
the cost. Let's say it again. Count the
the
cost.
cost.
One more time.
Count the cost.
Hallelujah. I love y'all. And we are done. Any questions, comments? All right. You know, if you want to donate cash, the black box is over there. If you want to donate to the PayPal, It is paypal.me/Torah Culture. If you want to do Cash App, it is $Torah Culture. And if you write checks, who still write checks? You write checks?
I write checks.
What? What? Meet me in my office after this.
Checks.
We gotta talk about this. Checks. Checks.
He said something ain't right.
What is that? See, that's. You write checks to make it out the cash. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.